am the front of house mixer for Memphis here on Broadway. So here at Memphis, I am in charge of the audio department. I mix the show. I make sure everybody in the audience hears what needs to be heard, all the lines, the music, and basically try and make it sound great. We take care of all the personal microphones, which are on the actors' bodies, and make sure they work, and as well as the band, take care of the band, make sure all the inputs work and all the speakers in the house work, and basically that's about it. When I was in college, I was in charge of bringing in bands to my small little college, and we had a small PA, and nobody knew how to use it except for two guys who just seemed to mess things up necessarily, and I got tired of it, and one night I stayed and figured out how it worked, and from there I started renting equipment from local sound vendors, and when I graduated with my history degree I had nothing better to do and I knew how to run sound, so I went and worked for a local sound shop, and at that point in time I had a friend of mine who was a technical director of a theater in Birmingham, Alabama, and he asked me to come in and run sound for theater, and it turns out he went out on a tour and became a production manager for a touring company, in which when he became the production manager, he hired me to go out on a tour, and it's kind of all been downhill from there. I did 5 or 6 tours, and that led me to New York, and I was actually able to do my first show in New York, which only lasted 5 weeks, but it's just one job ran into the next, and here I am. The first show I did was Coppedin Yeston's Phantom. I won't say what we called it because I don't think it's right, but anyways, that was my first show, and it was a huge learning experience, touring a show and everything. The next show I did was Buddy, the Buddy Holly story, and that's how I met my wife on that one. I got my New York experience with Ring of Fire, which was the show that closed in like 5 weeks. And I did Tale of Two Cities as well. I've been with Jersey Boys for a while. I did Jersey Boys here in the city. I did it in Chicago and in LA. And I've done Memphis here. So that's the most of the shows. And I've done some things that are supposedly up and coming, but nothing's ever happened with those, like Mask and I can't remember the other one, but we'll not worry about it. Anyways, but that's pretty much all of them. So Memphis, I enjoy mixing Memphis actually because it's a louder rock and roll show. You can be more aggressive with it. It's more in your face, and it's guitars and the bass and the drums and everything else, and it moves. So that's what I enjoy about it. So my daily routine, I get to the theater and I go out front and I basically power up the console, and at that point in time we go and check all the speakers. I have a program set up at the beginning of the show where I can punch through cues and listen to each separate speaker to make sure the speaker works. After that's done, I go and make sure that all of my returns back into the console, like the reverbs, are working. The guys backstage have been battering the microphones up and getting ready to test them to make sure that all the actors who are wearing microphones work and we don't have any problems. We check the connectors, make sure they're not broken, so that when they go out on stage, at least we know they're working then, but things happen, they break later on usually. After that, the guys deliver the microphones, and I do an on-stage speaker check with the guys backstage, make sure that the actors can hear everything, And at that point in time, I check the playback system, which is all the sound effects that happen during the show and that sort of thing. So what happens when something goes wrong? Usually what happens is a microphone, the mic element that's on an RF body pack, the connection, the cable breaks and causes really loud crackling noises, in which there's nothing you can really do in the heat of the moment during the song being sung, and usually that just lends to turning the microphone off and not even trying to use it, or using somebody else's mic who's standing next to them. And it happens occasionally, and it's kind of funny when it does happen, because it kind of reminds the audience that this is something that you kind of depend on nowadays. It's not like theater of the past where no microphones were used at all and everybody says, oh, we got to go back to this way. So it's very helpful in a way that the audience goes, oh yeah, we really do need the microphone. But it was funny on this show, there's another instance, one of our cast members went on and he started the show, he did his first number, he came off, and he had like 10-15 minutes before he came back on, in which he took his microphone off so he could shave. He shaved and forgot to put the microphone back on, and so he comes out to do this really powerful number, and his microphone was tucked in his jacket, so you couldn't hear a word he was saying. And it was one of those moments where he understood what was going on, and he just shouted as much as he could, but it still wasn't as effective as having the microphone on. So he swears that won't ever happen again, and I'm sure it won't now that has happened. So, but there are many times where actors will forget their mic. It happens multiple times, even at this level. So. And you can't do anything about it, so all you can do is kind of grin and bear it and laugh and give the actor a really hard time. So if you would like to get into sound, there are multiple roads that you can go down. Many people go to school and learn it in schools. There are a few good schools out there. There's Full Sail in Orlando, Florida. There's a couple other schools around the country that do teach programs like this to give you a background in this field. But like, I have no official training in this field. It was just a matter of learning as I went, and that's certainly not the wrong way to go. But it's not the only way to go. There's other ways of doing it. But just getting your foot in the door is the biggest thing, and the more shows you do, the better off you are. The more experience you have, the more experience you learn. So that's how I got into it, was just doing one show right after the other and trying to learn from the mistakes I made, and that obviously made me a better mixer, and here I am. I reached one of my goals. So.